Welcome, everybody, to the City of Farmers Branch study session for Tuesday, October 22nd. Our first item of business this afternoon will be item C1 is discuss regular agenda items. I'll start on my right with Councilman Neal. I guess, let me just say, we've got two members out right now. Both should be joining us later via Zoom, I believe. We'll see what happens. Councilman Neal, any items for C1?
Not particularly. I'll just wait for the presentations in the regular.
Thank you. Councilman Roman?
No, I'm good.
Councilman Baird?
Good, thank you.
Very good. I will hold mine then. Next up is item C2, discuss appointing a city council member as liaison to the Firehouse Theater.
There's no presentation, just discussion.
Okay. I'm sorry here. Let me just get organized a little bit better. So staff does not have a presentation on this. This is for the council to decide who would like to serve as a liaison to that organization. Any comments or thoughts? Councilman Roman?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I think Roger probably has more closer and tight-knit connection and with the Firehouse Theater, so I think he might be the best person for it.
I'd be happy to serve in that capacity if it's the will of the council.
You good? Okay. Well, since it's small group right now, I have no objection, so congratulations. Okay. And I trust that the theater will let us know when their meetings are, so that you'll be able to attend. All right. Next up is item C3, receive an update from the mayor and council members regarding board liaison information from outside organizations and other meetings attended. Councilman Roman.
Yeah, so Perla and I attended the International Economic Development Conference in Denver, Colorado on September the 15th. Well, I guess it was a little bit earlier than that, but essentially the 15th through the 18th is when the conference took place. And I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about some of the things that we've learned, because I think it would be responsible and transparent of me to do so, given that the city did pay for me to go up and learn a lot of stuff out there, and I just wanted to share some of the incredible things that we learned out there. Let me just say that for those who are not familiar, IEDC, or the International Economic Development Conference that was held in that we went to, it is the largest economic development gathering in the world, and I think they mentioned that this was actually the largest group that they have ever had in its history. It's essentially a place to meet and hear from other movers and shakers of the industry. And, also it was an opportunity for Perla and I to frankly steal other people's ideas and network with some other individuals across the world on some initiatives that they've brought forth in their specific municipalities. I was one of the handful of people who were elected officials who attended, and the conference was primarily for those who work in this specific space as directors, sort of in the role that Perla serves in. So, and I can't tell you how many of the staff people across the country said that they wish that their city council members would come with them to these conferences so that they can better understand what it is that they do and support one another in their respective roles. Perla and I had an opportunity to meet a lot of people who are now resources locally, nationally, and even internationally. Among the many questions that were asked about Farmers Branch, as you can imagine, not many people across the world have heard of Farmers Branch. But one of the questions that stood out to me was, how would you, as an elected official, define economic development? And initially, at the beginning of the conference, I sort of struggled to answer the question because as I've learned economic development, professionals, they recruit and support small businesses and all types of businesses. They attract large-scale events, like they mentioned the Super Bowl and the Olympics. They partner with organizations to achieve an outcome for their residents. For instance, I know we're trying to collaborate with Southwest Airlines to some extent, but they had mentioned how Southwest Airlines, being one of the title sponsors for the entire event, had worked with an economic development individual in a city to change the path of how their planes were landing so that a neighborhood didn't have to suffer the noise anymore. And there were more other examples, so it sort of seemed like those who work in economic development are like the Swiss Army knife of the city, it seemed like. And so, however, as the conference progressed, I learned that the definition of economic development is different for each city because the needs differ from community to community, and also by person to person, it will likely also be different. But as I go through my report, I think you'll see how the definition of economic development that I now hold has been shaped by some of these sessions that I attended. And as we're talking about these sessions, let me just say before I get started that they were incredible. There were so many incredible presentations that Perla and I had to actually split up so that we could attend two that were going on at overlapping times, and then we would get together right after and debrief very quickly before we ran into the next sessions. Some of the ones that Perla and I attended included learning about best practices in marketing our city. So that one sort of delved into what information a city's website should include or not include, how marketing dollars are currently being spent and how they should be spent, what detail developers and businesses are looking for. And also they discussed the research that supported each of the recommendations that were made. One of the others was about the housing crisis across the country. And essentially my takeaway is that everyone in the country and even internationally seems to be struggling with this missing middle housing. And it's just that some areas are having more of a challenge in finding that than others. I learned about how public and private partnerships have been leveraged to address this specific housing crisis. Additionally, the housing crisis is not just limited to addressing the missing middle housing, but also reinvestment and redevelopment, and how nonprofit and public partnerships, as well as public and public partnerships, and public and private, and a mixture of these partnerships can be leveraged. Specific examples that were shared in this presentation were from representatives from Pennsylvania and New York and their specific municipalities. I also had gone to the Denver Chamber of Commerce, where I learned about the needs of the small business owners in globally, and how different entities in the small business ecosystem interact to support these businesses. I was particularly surprised to learn how that specific chamber, being a much larger chamber than the one that we have here, one of the goals that they have for that organization is to attract and bring international businesses to Denver, Colorado. While there, I met some builders who I then continued a relationship with and met with after the conference about the work that we're doing here in Farmers Branch regarding redevelopment. They're already looking at some projects in the Dallas area now, and now they have our city on their radar. Perla and I also attended another session that helped us identify regional strengths and assets, as well as the competitive advantages of our area. And all of this was intended to try and craft a unique value proposition that's going to capture the attention of builders, developers, and business owners so that they can come and invest in our community. I also attended a session called Overcoming Small Town Divisiveness with Powerful Collaborations that was intended to understand the pain points that come in a growing small town, particularly like ours, and strategies that have been successful in other areas to bridge divides and foster a unified vision. Some of what they taught us included tweaking projects, engaging individuals in different groups, assigning meaningful roles to individuals who are involved and outspoken, and creating transformative experiences that change perceptions. I also had an opportunity to speak to many other city directors that shared their personal stories of how they implemented what's called the IDEA-friendly method, and took other approaches to ensure their community felt comfortable with the growth that was coming prior to starting a project and prior to devoting significant resources to it. They also talked about how businesses are often neglected when considering major changes to this area, which I thought was interesting as well. Perla and I also attended the Women in Economic Development Lunch, where I, along with another gentleman, were the only two people in the room. And we were touted as the two smartest men at the conference for attending. The discussion was around how far the industry has come for women and how they deal with certain challenges in their industry and at their organizations. Perla and I attended a session that focused on strategies to engage with Hispanic communities. It is common, not just in Farmers Branch, but in other communities, that engagement in the Latino community is low. However, some cities have had a lot of success with engaging with them, and since our city is 53% Hispanic, we thought it was a worthwhile conversation to participate in. The conversation was so riveting that I even participated in the discussion when it came to the topics of collaborating with elected officials in their own cities, how to encourage other Hispanics to run for office, and how I have fostered relationships in my own district with the Hispanic community. Lots of people were surprised that a current elected was in attendance, and we exchanged information with each other and figured we could be helpful with each of our endeavors in the future. Also, as a result of this meeting, myself and Perla are now members of a unique WhatsApp group with other Hispanic economic development professionals all around the world with the intent of being a resource to one another. Perla and I attended a session led by a site selector professionals, which was a new term for me. But they essentially go out and try and find the next location for whoever their client is. And so it was unique for me to sort of sit in and listen to what it is that they look for and how they source their information when finding their next city to invest in. And based off of their feedback, it became apparent that we have some areas here in the city where we could improve in terms of the information that is not readily available to these site selectors. And really the theme of this entire presentation was, how do we put the information right in front of them so that it's easy for them to select us? Perla and I were also able to meet with the president of the National Association of Realtors. And that was a really exciting conversation, because through that conversation, he had shared some information about some grants that are available for cities like ours that are provided directly from their organization. I'm sure that Perla is already on top of learning more about those grants, but we wouldn't have known about these if we didn't go to the conference and make the most of it. Perla and I also met with an economic development fellow whose job it is to help municipalities in her region when it comes to economic development or small business minority ecosystems. Come to find out, we were actually not only in her region, but she actually lives in the Dallas area. And so Perla and I had an opportunity to talk to her recently to explore those opportunities, as well as talk about how we can continue to work together and use each other as a resource in the near future. And I will stop there. I promise you there were so many other sessions that we attended, but I just wanted to highlight some of the more important ones that I thought would be important to report back to the conference. But lots of really neat information that I learned, and look forward to implementing some of those and also working alongside our staff to make our city a better place. So with that, that's it.
Thank you very much. Maybe in the coming weeks, we can hear more, and that information that you learned may be beneficial when we bring in the Metro Texas Association of Realtors to come and speak to council. So appreciate that. Councilman Barrett, anything? Nothing. Okay. I have a rather lengthy list since we didn't do this at the last meeting, so I'm sort of getting caught up. But just to let you know what has been going on in Mayor's World, I did go to Raleigh to accept a achievement award from the International Bluegrass Music Association on behalf of the city. The luncheon there was attended, I would say probably by about 900 bluegrass fans, and so it was quite interesting. I did ask the audience for a show of hands, who's ever been to Farmers Branch to our music festival? And a lot of hands went up. So, and of course, we had our Bluegrass Festival this past weekend, and I actually saw a couple folks here that I had met in Raleigh, so that was pretty cool. DART. We've had a lot, I've been involved, I should say, in a lot of meetings regarding DART, and I'll talk more about that towards the end of my report, but just know that there's been a series of ongoing meetings, and I'll address that more in a minute. The city manager, Perla, and I met with Dallas County Commissioner Andy Summerman regarding the Dallas County Housing Replacement Program, and just to go over some finer point details and assure him that we are working to get our list of candidates and committed folks to be involved in that program. We have to have those folks committed before the end of the year. So that's an ongoing process that Perla is heading up. Of course, we had Coffee with a Cop at Aussie Grind, which was fairly well attended. The fire department had their open house, and I also attended a household hazardous waste collection. You know, we've been doing that now for a number of years, and I think that we're finally getting to the point where most people have most of the stuff out of their homes. So we're seeing fewer and fewer folks come through with not quite as much stuff as they used to have, that's the goal. So we will continue to do that in the future, but know that that program is working. I did have a meeting along with some other elected officials with Congressman Mark Vesey. One of the points that I wanted to discuss with him was grants for area cities and the communication of those grants from his office. I think it's incumbent upon him to make sure that the cities that he represents are aware of grants that might come up and pass that information down to us, so we're not constantly having to go find him or his appropriate assistant to get this information. We did have a book vending machine giveaway at Blair Elementary School that was in conjunction with the school district and the charity Make It Count. They were the ones who paid for the machine and donated it to Blair Elementary. Kids there were very excited. City manager and I had a meeting with Michael Morris, who is the transportation director for the Council of Governments, and talking about the future of transportation. We are going to bring some more information about that up here, I would guess probably in January. Chapel Hill School had an SBDM meeting, which is a site-based decision meeting, and I'm on the board of that along with Chief Dudier from the fire department. The purpose of that is to localize decision-making as it relates to various DISD campuses to the school, parents, parent-teacher organization, and community officials. DISD thinks that decentralizing some of their decision-making will actually serve the neighborhood schools better, and so I have served on that board since becoming mayor, and it meets quarterly. Of course, we had National Night Out. I tried to attend at least one party in each council district. I went to 8 and got some good feedback from most of the people at parties that we attended. We had a meeting with Perla and I had a meeting with Cherry Coatings, which is looking to relocate their business and corporate headquarters to Farmers Branch from Carrollton. So we're excited about that. We had ribbon cutting with the Chamber for Bankhead Brewery. The Dallas Regional Mobility Commission, which meets every month, we've actually had a couple of meetings now, and to discuss future of NTTA projects as well as DART and other mobility projects. The question was asked of the NTT representative, how many people that use the toll system, the toll road system, are actually paying? And it's about 93%. So that 7%, sometimes up to 8%, that doesn't pay, they are going after those folks as they are allowed to do. But I guess the important thing is to make sure that, for all of us that are paying to use toll roads, we're paying, and we're paying for a system. And this was the one big takeaway that I guess I really never thought about it myself. Yeah, I can remember, and my counterpart in Dallas also said the same thing. When the toll road from 635 to downtown was paid for, it was supposed to be made free. They'd take the toll things out, toll plazas out, and the road would be free. Same with I-30. Well, that didn't happen. They decided to extend the toll road further north, and further north, and further north. And then they built other roads, Chisholm Trail and other roads. Users are paying for the system. So just because one stretch of roadway is paid for doesn't mean the toll is going to go away. We're still funding the rest of the system. And I guess the flip side of looking at that is the only people that are paying for the system are the ones that are using it. If you don't use the system, you're not paying for it. So it was an interesting viewpoint to have it described that way, because I do recall, and I mentioned this at the meeting, after the road was paid for, my silent protest was I drove through the toll plaza, well, right before they removed the things, and threw 50 pennies in there when it was 50 cents, and I said, count that, and drove on. At least I paid, but my silent protest was throwing the pennies in there. And everybody got a laugh out of that. So know that our tolls are building the future of the tollway, which it's massive. And when you look at the number of people that are moving into this area and that are projected to move into this area, you understand why having a good highway system, a good toll road system, a good regional transportation network is so important to our area. St. Andrew's Church had their fall festival. Police and fire and animal control all were at that event. We celebrated the 150th anniversary of the James A. Smith Lodge with Mayor Babick. That lodge is just right over here across from City Hall. The Martoma Church had their Martoma Fest. I made an appearance at that. Of course, we had the Metroplex Mayors Association meeting, and I just want to say we're made aware of various events that are going on at that meeting. On November 14th, the Dallas Regional Chamber is making a presentation that's entitled Global Perspectives with Federal Reserve Chairman Powell, Jerome Powell. And that'll be on November 14th from 2 to 3 p.m. at Fair Park. Other upcoming events, the North Dallas Chamber of Commerce is having a presentation on aviation transportation. That will be on November 13th. November 22nd, they'll have the North Dallas Chamber of Commerce will have their annual Transportation Crossroads Conference from 7:30 to 1:30 at the Anatole. And then also in November on the 13th, the North Texas Commission will be reviewing the North Texas Legislative Summit, or have a North Texas Legislative Summit from 9 to 2, and they will be reviewing legislative priorities for the region. Our DISD trustee for the area south of Valley View that's in the DISD had a community meeting that I attended. Again, how to help individual campuses make better decisions for their own little area. Of course, we had the shredding event on October 13th, and I would suggest that, as I mentioned with household hazardous waste, we're seeing fewer people come with less stuff. That was the goal all along. And so instead of doing this 3 times a year, we may consider only doing it 2 times a year if council sees fit. But we just didn't have the volume of people that we've had in the past, nor the volume of material. Oak Street Health had their grand opening. Oak Street Health is basically a primary care provider that's located on Valwood in the same plaza with El Rancho, and that I think there's a Family Dollar up there, but in that strip center at the southeast corner of Valwood and Josie. This place was phenomenal. They specialize in providing care for seniors, Medicare. They also have, every day, they allow a Medicare representative or somebody who sells Medicare insurance to come in and answer questions for their patrons. It's something they do to build a partnership with agents that are selling Medicare insurance. The office itself was just gorgeous, and they are really to be commended. I believe they will be coming to the council meeting in November to tell a little bit more about what they do themselves. Of course, Envision, which is right down on Valley View, used to be Dallas Lighthouse for the Blind. They had their White Cane Day. And of course, if you remember the last council meeting, we issued proclamation recognizing that. Well, again, I'm hoping that our council will be able to participate at one of the upcoming events that they have, whether it's their formal grand opening on Thursday, the 31st, or the Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting on Friday, November 1st at Envision. Please put it on your calendar to go. Please take the tour. I think you will be amazed at what you see if you tour that facility. Visually impaired people that are manufacturing goods, running equipment, pretty sophisticated equipment, and really working to do good. It was very, I'll just say it was very moving for me to see this and see what all they're doing there. And it may trigger some ideas or opportunities with you if you know of businesses that do piecemeal type work or very light manufacturing that are looking to sub things out. This would be a great opportunity to partner with somebody because they have people who want to work and they are very, very competitive in terms of trying to provide assistance for other companies that do manufacturing. Chief McCoy and I attended the North Texas Crime Commission luncheon, and there was a presentation by the special agent in charge of the ATF. That was really, really interesting, talking about how firearms are trafficked to Mexico and Canada, and it's happening right here under our nose. And they talked about straw purchasers also, which are people who go into gun stores or gun shows, purchase firearms, knowing full well that they're going to sell it to a bad person, not pointing at you. But they're doing that, which is against the law. And that's how a lot of firearms are ending up down in Mexico. Very interesting. Had a meeting with Senator Cornyn's chief of staff last week to also talk about grant information. They've got somebody on staff now that is in charge of deciphering federal government grants. And then I said, you all need to make that information available to the cities that you represent. I can't be expected to go find that and sift through all the myriad of documents and websites and whatnot. So Senator Cornyn's office is going to be doing the same thing that I asked Congressman Vesey for, and that is to help provide that information so we can see what might be coming down the pipe and, if necessary, make application for various grants that meet our city's needs. Of course, we had a very successful Bluegrass Festival. Thank you to the Park Department and all the city staff that helped put that on. Picture perfect weather. It was great. Same time, we had Essilor Family Day. Essilor is the eyeglass manufacturer here in Farmers Branch. And what was interesting, they run 24/7 over there. They actually stopped their production line for 5 hours, which they've never done before, to give their employees the opportunity to bring their families in and see what it is they do over there. And it is a fascinating operation. I am working with them to schedule another event where our council will be able to go and see for themselves, because they would like to show us this while it's actually running. Perla was with me at that event. I mentioned DART earlier, and there's been lots of discussions regarding DART and how DART moves forward with cities. This was mentioned last night at the candidate forum, and I believe some of the information was incorrect, but it wasn't my place to say anything. So let me just be perfectly clear, because there are people out there that are spreading wrong information or misinformation. City of Farmers Branch is not looking to get out of DART, but we do believe that DART needs to be restructured and reorganized. The current model of DART is not working. DART was formed 41 years ago, and the model that was created 41 years ago has not done anything to grow from the 13 original member cities, of which Farmers Branch is one. There's a reason other Metroplex cities have not joined DART. They don't want to give up 1 cent of their sales tax, and I understand that. We don't want to give up, as a member city, 1 cent, and so Farmers Branch, along with 5 other cities, passed a resolution stating that we would like to reduce our contribution from 1 cent to 3/4 cent. We did that as a council. That didn't mean we were going to drop out of DART. And the resolution was just that. It's not a mandate. It's just saying, hey, we would like the DART board to think about how they're operating think about the money that they're getting from member cities and see if the financial support arrangements can be restructured or better structured to meet the needs of each community. Our needs are different from Rowlett's. Our needs are different from South Dallas. And so I think it's important that DART officials and the DART board listen to the member cities and work to try to find a happy median. And maybe it's almost presenting a menu of services that work for each city. Regional transportation, as I said earlier, is so important to the vitality of North Texas. But we can't do it alone with just the 13 member cities. We need new life, new blood in the DART system. Grand Prairie, Arlington should be in the DART system. Frisco should be in the DART system, along with many other cities. So this is a really hot topic right now between cities and DART. And I gotta believe that with as bright of minds as there are serving in municipal leadership with various cities and amongst the DART board, and with the help of the Regional Transportation Commission, we can find a way that will help us or pave the way for new cities to want to join the DART system. We just had this, I don't know how many meetings we've attended, but we just attended one yesterday, Ben and I, and it's a really big deal. So if anybody has any questions or comments about DART and what's going on with the City of Farmers Branch, please call me. I'd be happy to have those conversations. And that is all that I have to report today. So thank you for allowing me to cover all of that. Next up is item C4, discuss future agenda items. Councilman Roman.
Yes, I've been in communication with our city attorney regarding the stipend that was implemented in the charter as a result of the charter election this past spring, and may have found an opportunity to be more efficient in the way that that's being administered. So I'd like to have a discussion with the rest of the council members to vet out that idea and get everybody's input. And that's it.
Councilman Baird? Councilman Neal?
Yeah, I have a few items. I'm not sure if they necessarily need an agenda item, but at the very least, I'd like to get some updates on a couple of things. Not long ago, we approved the city taking over some of the medians of a couple of HOA districts. And I'd like to get an update as to where we are on that. Have we actually taken over the medians? Is there any paperwork still needing finalization, any liability paperwork, that sort of thing? Start dates, any sort of updates they can provide us on that. And similarly, with respect to a project in the Oak Brook area, which I represent regarding water meters, I'd like to get an update on where that stands and how we can move that forward and come to some closure on that. The second item. The third item I'd like to bring up, and that is to see if the council is willing to take up and address. As you know, we've got parking issues throughout some aspects of the residential city, throughout the city. And I'd like to know if we can have an agenda item to discuss and address the various boats, RVs, trailers, and commercial vehicles that are being parked in many of the residential areas, as that's only furthering the issues of our street parking and whatnot. So I'd like to know if we could do that. And then finally, the last thing, as Mayor, you may have alluded to, I was wondering if the city or we could address having an additional event for hazardous waste pickup, at least maybe 2 a year or addition. I'm not sure.
We'll have that discussion.
Yeah, we could just have the discussion.
Yep.
However it goes. That's all I had.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to read us into executive session now, because that's all we have for study session. So, council, item D1, council may convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, personnel deliberation for the evaluation of the city manager. D2, city council may convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to discuss economic development incentives for Project 5B. Item D3, city council may convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to discuss economic development incentives for project purpose. Item D4, city council may convene in closed executive session pursuant to section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to discuss economic development incentives for Project Morning Crane. Item D5, city council may convene in closed executive session pursuant to section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to discuss economic development incentives for Project Washington. And item D6, city council may convene in closed executive session pursuant to section 551.072 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the sale of real property located 1349 to 1399 Valley View Lane. So we will recess to 4:55.